We're live.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Governance and Resources Committee meeting via Zoom. Thank you all for attending. And we look forward to a reasonable meeting. I'd like to first ask for apologies, please.
Chair, Mike Ratcliffe's gone to bed ill this afternoon, so sending Mike's apologies.
Okay. Jason, have we got any other apologies?
I've not had any further apologies, Chair.
Okay, then. Well, from that, then, can we just do a quick roll call, please? Can you indicate if you are here or not, please, everybody?
Councillor Allison.
Here.
Councillor Archer.
Here.
Councillor Ball.
Here.
Councillor Buttle.
Here.
Councillor Chapman.
Here.
Councillor Cruz.
Here.
Councillor Donnelly.
Here.
Councillor Flitter. Councillor Flitter, I've seen him.
I am here, but my internet is going in and out of contact.
Councillor Hill.
Here.
Councillor Hobson.
Here.
Councillor Morley.
Here.
Councillor Purdy.
Here.
Councillor Raw. I thought I'd seen Councillor Raw.
Councillor, he was here because I
Yeah.
heard him.
Councillor Slack.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Sutton.
Here.
And Councillor Swindell.
Here.
That's everybody. I've just not been able
I
to...
don't think you got me. You didn't get.
Yeah, Councillor Raw.
Councillor, are you back with us, are you?
Yeah, I
Right.
lost my signal for a minute.
Right.
You're having problems with signals. Okay, fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, right. We'll move on to item 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting, which is the 20th of August 2020 and the 22nd of October, which was a special meeting. Can I have a proposer for that? Who was that? Sorry, Councillor
David.
Chapman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Councillor Morley, thank you. It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the minutes. Can take a show of hands of that, please. Have you got that?
Yeah, that appears to be unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, public participation. Have we got any questions? Anything?
We've not received any, Chair.
Okay. Members' interests. Have any members got anything to declare pecuniary interest before we carry on with the meeting? No, I take that as a no. Item 5, questions for the rule procedure number 15. No questions? No, okay, thank you. Then we move on to the main report. Item 6 is the external audit completion report for the year ending 31st of March 2020. I don't know, Karen, do you want to introduce Gavin, or we go straight to Gavin?
Don't mind, I'm happy for you to go straight to Gavin, Chair.
Okay, then we'll move straight to Gavin.
This is our audit completion report. It's the most important report that we produce in the audit year because it's the report on the outcomes of the audit for the year 2019-20. And clearly we've worked through an extraordinary year and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the audit, the production of the accounts and the audit, as well as it has everything else in our lives. And that's one of the reasons why we're reporting to you so late in the day. We would normally report much earlier in the year. But as you're probably aware, the deadlines for both the production of the financial statements and for the completion of the audit were extended. The audit deadline is the 30th of November. We're on target to be able to sign off by the 30th of November. We've got one thing that we're waiting for, and that's a bank letter confirmation from your bank, and we're still waiting for that despite chasing it a number of times. That's the one thing that is holding us up at the moment. So we're pleased to present our report. At the time that we wrote our report, which was the 9th of November, we identified a number of things that were still outstanding. I'll be able to update you on the extent to which they've been addressed. But just summarising the position at the moment, we're anticipating being able to issue an unqualified audit opinion on your financial statements and an unqualified value for money conclusion. At the time we wrote, we highlighted that we hadn't received the instructions from National Audit Office in relation to the whole of government accounts. We now have those instructions, so we are in a position where we should be able to complete the whole of government account work as well and be able to sign everything off by the 30th of November, provided we get that bank confirmation letter. In our executive summary of our report, we highlighted the things that were outstanding at the time we wrote our report. I can confirm that we have addressed all of those things, apart from receiving the bank confirmation letter. We have now received the pension fund auditor assurance that we require before we're able to sign off on your financial statements. So we've received everything. The only thing which I would say that we do still do is, because we're not in a position to sign off at this moment, and we will sign off hopefully by the 30th of November, we do have closing procedures that we carry out as part of the audit. So we look at things right at the point that we sign off. So we would make sure that there were no sort of changes that would impact our work between now and the point that we sign off. So that still needs to be done, but that's a relatively a formality. So moving on to the two main areas of the audit, which I'll say a little bit about each. The first one is the opinion that we give on your financial statements. And what we did as part of our planning process is we identified significant risks which provided a focus for our work. So when we talk about significant risks, we're not talking about that we suspect that there are problems with your arrangements. These are areas of importance in the accounts that we focus on. So that's the sense in which the risks. And the findings in relation to these are summarised in the report. So just very, very quickly, the first one is the management override of controls. And that's the risk that whatever systems of internal control the council has in place, management is in a unique position where, should it choose to, it could override those controls. So auditors do specific work and specific testing of the financial statements to ensure that that hasn't happened. And as you would expect in your case, we didn't find any evidence of management override of controls. The next two areas of significant risk are significant risks for similar reasons. They are the valuation of your property, plant and equipment and your pension liability disclosures. They're both significant risks because they're really large numbers in your financial statements. They involve quite a high degree of estimation uncertainty. That means judgment needs to be applied in estimating the figures that are reflected in your financial statements, often using external experts. So in the case of valuation of property, plant and equipment, you use a valuer. And in the case of pensions, you're relying on work that's undertaken by an actuary. So for those reasons, we do quite a lot of detailed work in relation to both of those things. There are some findings reported. I'll just briefly outline the findings for you. So in terms of valuations of property, plant and equipment, because of COVID-19 and because of the impact on marketplaces, certain elements of your portfolio became increasingly difficult to value. And the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors advised all of its valuers to report material valuation uncertainty in their valuation reports for you this year. So your value did that. your valuer did that, and as a result of that, you've disclosed material valuation uncertainty in your financial statements. And it's our normal practice as auditors that where there's a disclosure of material valuation uncertainty, we reference that in our formal audit report. So we actually don't believe that the financial statements are materially misstated. We're just highlighting the fact that due to the extraordinary circumstances this year around the COVID-19 pandemic, there is this disclosure, and it's an important disclosure in your statements. So we include in our audit report what's called an emphasis of matter paragraph. It's not a qualification. It doesn't modify in any way the unqualified opinion that we're given on your financial statements. It just draws the reader of the accounts and the reader of our reports attention to that important disclosure. And you've also extended the disclosure to include your share of pension fund assets, because the pension fund, you're part of the Derbyshire County Council Pension Fund, and part of the assets within that fund are effectively attributable to you. And the valuers of those property assets within the fund also made the disclosure of material valuation uncertainty, and consequently you've added a disclosure on that into your financial statements. And we also draw attention in our emphasis of matter paragraph to that disclosure as well. And it's that disclosure that was changed ever so slightly today by your officers, and I think has been provided to you today. It's a very sort of minor change in what is a technical disclosure, but I understand members have that amendment at hand now. In relation to the final significant risk around pensions, there were some very technical issues that arose on that during the course of the year. I'll briefly explain those. The first one was there was an issue arose around the McLeod judgment that impacted on everybody's pension liabilities in last year's audit and in last year's financial statements. In July, MHCLG consulted on the proposed remedy for McLeod. Prior to that, actuaries had sort of based their assessment of the liability, the additional liability, on assumptions. When the proposed remedy was revealed, the actuaries revisited that to see whether their assumptions had been reasonable. Your actuary identified that there was probably an overstatement of the liability based on the assumptions that they had used, but we received evidence to assure us that that wouldn't be material to your financial statements, and as a consequence of that, no amendment was made to the financial statements. The second pensions issue was around a case called the Goodwin case, which impacted on the teachers' pension scheme but had wider impacts for all public sector pension scheme. On that case, your actuary has indicated that there will be an additional liability, but it's very difficult because the information isn't fully available to assess what that is. But we have been provided information that shows that that would not be material either. So there will be an additional liability, but it's not a significant additional liability. So your financial statements haven't been amended for any of those issues. So just saying a little bit about the quality of the financial statements and your accounting arrangements. We received the statements on the 27th of August, ahead of the 31st of August deadline. The statements themselves are of good quality. They're supported by working papers, which provide sort of justification and evidence for the figures that are disclosed in the financial statements. And a big part of our job is to test what's disclosed in your financial statements and ensure there's sort of rigor and robustness of your arrangements in making those disclosures. We think it's been a considerable achievement for your finance team to be able to produce a good quality set of financial statements despite having to work remotely and despite all the challenges that the council's faced in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So as a result of the pandemic, there were a lot of additional tasks for your officers to complete. Obviously, the council is an important community leader. It's been seen as that by the government and has been a key feature of the council's work to help support the local economy and the local community, for example, by processing business grants in this period, which created a large additional workload for a relatively small council. Yet the council has managed to deliver all of that and also deliver the financial statements to a high level of quality. And we certainly pay testament to your team, to Karen, to Paul, and the rest of the team for being able to do that. And it's certainly made the audit easier. The audit has been difficult this year because we've had to work remotely on it. We haven't relaxed any of the standards or the degree of testing to which we've carried out our work. It's taken longer because of working remotely, but it's really important to recognise that it's been a very, very positive and effective working relationship that we've had with your officers, and that's made the whole process easier than would otherwise be the case. So there have been significant matters that we've discussed with management, and I've mentioned some of those, and they're highly technical, around pensions and around sort of property valuations. But we wouldn't say we had any issues at all with officers that have been fully cooperative, and it's important for me to recognise that. We have wider responsibilities. We have certain powers and responsibilities. We haven't had to exercise any of those, which you wouldn't expect us to have to do in your case. And there are also rights that local electors have to ask us questions or to make an objection to the accounts, and nobody's exercised those rights this year. So that concludes my comments on the opinion on the financial statements. We do have a section of the report with some internal control recommendations. A couple of those are relatively minor. One of them is a recurring recommendation around the completion of returns by members to inform the disclosure of related party transactions in the financial statements. And the position on that, as in previous years, is that all of those returns haven't been provided by members. And there's some outstanding, and I think we've recorded in our report that there are sort of 5 that are outstanding at the current point in time. This is quite an important issue. The reason that that information is asked for is to inform the related party transaction notes. We do sort of urge the council to take action to ensure that all of these are provided in future. Moving on to the value for money conclusion. Always preface any conversation around the value for money conclusion by saying that this is not a judgment on whether the council provides value for money. We follow the guidance that's issued by the National Audit Office, and we review the arrangements that you have in place, and it specifies in our report the areas that we look at. We look at informed decision making. Does the council make informed decisions? Sustainable resource deployment, which has been a sort of key area of focus in recent years, given austerity and given the financial challenges that the council faces, and also working with partners and other third parties. We're satisfied that you have proper arrangements in place across all of these areas, and in our report we've included some narrative that describes some of the key arrangements in place. I mentioned financial sustainability, and we did identify that as a significant risk in our audit planning. Again, not because we suspected there were any problems with the council's arrangements, but just that in the current environment, and that's a pre-COVID current environment of financial pressure, we thought it was important to update our understanding of the council's arrangements to manage that. And we've done that, and we're satisfied with those arrangements, and we've concluded that the council does have proper arrangements in place, and its financial position, as far as I'm concerned, is secure, despite, like for many authorities, being difficult given all the challenges that exist, not least of which the additional challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And just on COVID-19, our arrangements review that informs our value for money conclusion. It really is about the arrangements you have in place in the year of audit, which is 1920. So it's about your arrangements up to the end of March 2020. So we haven't really covered in the work that we've reported to you on the value for money conclusion, the impact of COVID-19. That'll be a focus for next year's value for money conclusion. However, given the significance of it, we have kept in touch with officers throughout the period of the pandemic, the periods of lockdown, and we have kept up to date with the arrangements that have been put in place. So we are already informing our understanding of that for our 2021 work. And everything that we've seen so far is about the council responding positively as a community leader in a national crisis. And finally, two things. We ask for a management representation letter, and I know Karen's going to cover that in the next item tonight. And then the final thing is our audit report, which is Appendix B of our report. The audit report is a technical report. It has to be. A lot of the aspects of our report have to be technical because they have to meet international standards of auditing. Our report is a standard report, apart from the emphasis of matter paragraph, which is very much, unusual to have an emphasis of matter paragraph. That's the thing I described earlier about material valuation uncertainty, but not unusual this year because nearly every audit will have one. But it's just to draw your attention to that. That is the one thing that is different from what you would normally see. So, in conclusion, final thing, independence, the final appendix. We hold our independence dear. It's important to us that we're objective in the work that we do, that we're independent from you, and that we can comment without sort of fear or favour. And we haven't identified anything that challenges our independence. And that's a good point to end on. I'm quite happy to take questions or listen to any comments that members have. But that summarises our annual audit completion report. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Can I just bring in Karen just to go over the issue about the recurring issue of the members doing their declaration form, just to give an explanation to members to what it actually is.
So we write to members each year as part of the closure of accounts process and ask them to fill in a declaration to confirm that they've no related party transactions. So other than what they've already declared in their members' interest statement that they give to the corporate services team. So what we're looking for there is if a councillor is a member of any organisation to which perhaps the council has been involved in a transaction. So if the council's given a grant to an organisation, but that member is maybe on that board, then that's the kind of transaction we're looking for them to disclose. It's a process we do each year, as I say, but as Gavin's pointed out, for the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't had a full set of replies, despite several reminders. As a result of a conversation earlier today with Gavin, we are going to review the processes for next year, start it earlier and perhaps ask members in a different way that's more clear, and hopefully we'll get a full response next year.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. Okay, I'll move to questions if there are any. Councillor Purdy, do you wish any questions?
Thank you, Chair. A question of Gavin. Thank you very much for your presentation, Gavin, and it's nice to hear external plaudits for our team. We know we've got a good team and we got some credit for that in the beginning of the pandemic, when I think we were the first authority in the country to get monies out the fastest. So we applaud our team. What I'd like to know is, have you any specific idea on risks from COVID, advice to the team? I'm pleased to hear, this was one of my questions, you've taken the words out of my mouth. I'm pleased to hear that you're in consultation with the team, because the pandemic is putting huge pressures all round. We've got some pressures coming up soon, we think, from Freedom Leisure. So if we don't get any monies from government, I just wonder what advice you can give in regard to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. I've got to say it's not my role to sort of give it financial advice, but what I would say is that every authority now is concerned about the impact in terms of increased cost and lost income. Leisure, where you have an external leisure provider, is a particular issue, and particularly in sort of district councils. The government has put a lot of measures in place to provide councils with financial support. They were very quick to release additional funds. I know there was an issue initially about how much they were sort of providing to district councils, and that was addressed in the second and sort of future tranches. Then there was lost income, and there's sort of methodology being put in place around lost income. The key issue going forward is whether, when you total up all of the funding, the additional funding that's provided by government, whether that's going to cover the additional costs and lost income. And that is very difficult to sort of see at the moment, whether that will be the case. And we need to sort of work through what happens in the future. You also need a crystal ball, because you need to sort of understand what's going to happen with this pandemic, and none of us know what's going to happen next. But I know since we produced our report early November, the government has released some additional funding. It's also released some more funds to support business, which again creates an additional workload for you. This is something which is just going to need to be continually monitored, and I know Karen's been doing that right from the outset and providing reports into members on that. What I would look for, and what I see in your case, is you don't have an easy position, because all councils are under pressure financially, but you've managed your finances well, and you do have reserves that, yes, are earmarked for other things, but could help out to manage sort of difficult circumstances over a period and keep things on an even footing. So I have every expectation that the council will be able to manage its way through this. So I don't know if that helps a little bit in terms of the question.
No, it helps a lot, Gavin. I appreciate your help on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. My internet keeps going in and out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'll speak, although I can't see anybody else. The first thing I look for in these reports are the material errors and material impacts on financial statements. And again, I'm pleased to say that there aren't any. But I do question on page 16 of the report, under significant findings, number 2, it states that management has considered these matters and concluded no material impact. Surely this is Mazar's report and not management's report. I wonder if you just clarify that. And I'd like a little bit more information on the remuneration note and the leases note that is also in Appendix 2.
Okay. On the first point, yes, we do say management has considered these matters and has concluded, but I can just reassure you, and maybe we should have just expanded that slightly. We have reviewed management's conclusions and the evidence for those conclusions, and we're satisfied that the adjustments weren't material as well. So the management need to make their own conclusion, reach their own conclusion, because it's their accounts that they're presenting you to approve. But what we have done, and I can assure you of that, is we've looked at the judgments management have reached.
Thank you. What about the remuneration note and the leases note?
It looks like we're having a bit of problems. Jim, can you help out here? Is there anything you can do? Oh, he's back.
I think he's back.
Yeah. Can you start from the beginning of what you've just started to say on that next question, please, Gavin? Because we'd lost you.
Yeah. Okay. The leases note and the remuneration note. These are minor issues. In fact, you know, we've listed them there. They're not significant issues. We've listed them there for completeness. The sort of errors that have arisen, which is one of the reasons why you have sort of the independent audit process. We've identified them, we've discussed them with officers, there's no issues, and they've just been disclosed in the final version of the statements that you're invited to review this evening and approve.
Does that help with your questions, Councillor Splitter?
Not really. I would have liked a little bit of explanation there, but I take the point that they are insignificant, and I'll leave it at that. But if they were insignificant, I would have expected them not to have been in the report. That's all, though. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Upon that comment, Gavin, what you know, you're saying they were minor. Is that a justification that they should be there, or is it just noting that it was something that you found and just thought it should be flagged up?
Yeah.
Although it's come under the significant, that's the thing.
Yeah. We just thought, as you suggested, that we should list the I suppose these are the most significant things we found. They're insignificant, but these are the most significant things we found. So I suppose it says a lot of positive things about your accounts that we put them through all this pressure testing. And this is the extent of the sort of errors that have been amended. I suppose we've mentioned them because that's what we've found.
Right, okay. Well, thank you for that reply. Councillor Archer, questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one about the lack of declaration of interest, the 5 missing declaration of interest. And I know it's sort of been covered, but I just wanted to know, are there any potential consequences for councillors that haven't submitted declaration of interest? You know, could they be excluded from decision making or from certain meetings and things, or not? I'm just is there a genuine sort of problem in terms of that, in terms of whether they can take a full part in council if they've not handed it back? Are there any consequences, or is it just left and noted? Thanks.
I think that's probably a question for Karen.
Karen, would you like to take that, please?
I think that would depend on our member code of conduct and our constitution. So I don't know if James might be better placed than me with this here.
Okay, we're going round, but that's fine. James, we'll go to the monitor officer. How does that stand with yourself? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear in terms of the declaration that's referred to here, this isn't the statutory declaration of interest or register of interest that you as members are required to make within 28 days of your election or 28 days of any subsequent changes. This is a separate declaration that you make in terms of anything that hasn't been declared on those registers of interest. If you fail to make your declaration on your register of interest, that would in effect be a breach of the code of conduct and actually would, at least under the terms of the Localism Act, be considered a criminal matter, potentially subject to investigation by the police. I'm not sure how often that's being tested, and I think the police tend to take a very light touch approach to any investigation they do, but there is a potential criminal investigation arising from a failure to declare. I think in terms of the failure to supply the additional information for the declarations required here, there aren't any consequences as such. However, complaints could be made, and we would have to investigate that under the code of conduct potentially, and without prejudicing any investigation into any potential complaints. That's something we would go through carefully before making any assessments. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Councillor Archer. It probably partially does and partially doesn't.
Yeah, that's helped to clarify it somewhat, at least. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hobson, questions?
Well, it's a comment. I can hang on if you want, if you don't deal with questions.
No, I've got no more comments. Yeah, I'll take your comment.
All right, thank you. I just want to say that by Gavin, stating the independence of this report and the rigour and robustness, I made a note that you'd said that, that you've really looked into it. For those of us who aren't accountants and don't have a financial background, you've actually said it's a testament, to Karen and Paul and the rest of the team for the work they've done. We've not been able to sort of like physically meet you, but I'd also like to pay testament to you and your team as well, because it can't have been easy for you. But I think for members such as myself, you know, as you say, the things that you have highlighted are not major matters. So I'm very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hobson, upon that comment, would you like to move this as a noting of this external completion?
Yep, I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you. Can I find a seconder, please?
I'm happy to do that, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Morley, thank you. Do you wish to make any comments?
Other than it's a very extensive report, and I too, like Councillor Hobson, I'm not an accountant, but I do have faith in our officers, and it's a pleasure to hear that we are managing our finances well. So thank you to Karen and her teams. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for that. Okay. Is there anybody else who wish to make any comments?
Chair, can I just come in before you go to the vote, please?
Yes.
It's come to our attention during the debate that Councillor Swindle is happily with us this evening. However, there's been some confusion where I think Councillor Elliott's indicated that they've swapped committees, and that hasn't been formally approved by council yet. So whilst Councillor Swindle was very welcome to remain with the meeting, he won't be able to vote because Councillor Elliott is the non-aligned member on this committee at the moment.
Okay, right. So we can't make any amendments to that because considering they're a non-aligned member.
That's correct, yeah. There's no opportunity to substitute, unfortunately. So Councillor Swindle is very welcome to remain in the meeting, but I thought I'd better make that clear before you proceed to the vote. I have notified Councillor Swindle before we got to this point privately, but I wanted to make it clear to you and to people watching the meeting about the situation.
Everybody, okay. Councillor Swindle, obviously, as James has just made that a point of awareness. I'm sorry that this has come about. Obviously, it's been something because of the change in the demographics again within the council, and I think you've jumped the gun with the sounds of it.
Oh, I couldn't
Yeah.
resist. I couldn't wait. It was no, all it was, Chair, was I was originally from the outset of this term, I discussed with Graham about coming on GNR when we discussed our committees. That was agreement because I've always been on here. I don't know what went wrong. I contacted Graham after the full council meeting and said, you do realise you're on GNR, not me. And he sort of delayed and eventually sorted it out, but I thought it had been sorted. I'm going to stay just to educate myself and but not vote. Okay.
But right, that's absolutely fine. Okay, thank you. Right, with that in hand, can we go to the vote, please, Jason?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If councillors could indicate whether they're for, against, or abstain. Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cruz.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Flitter. Councillor Flitter. Councillor Flitter's frozen on my screen. I don't know.
Sorry, have you called my name?
Yes, Councillor Flitter. Yeah.
I'm for.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter.
I keep going in and out.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Raw.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
And Councillor Sutton.
For.
It's unanimous, Chair.
That is carried, and I will echo the thanks to the auditors and Gavin Mark to come and explain the report as you have done. Right, we'll move on to item 7, letter of representation. Karen, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the second of the 3 reports on the agenda tonight about the statement of accounts. I hope that this report is fairly self-explanatory. What we're asking to do is for members to endorse the letter of representation. That letter provides evidence to the external auditor that management acknowledges its responsibility for the fair presentation of the statement of accounts. And the consideration of that letter by members, those charged with governance is the term they use, that acknowledges that members have responsibility to ensure there are adequate arrangements for the preparation of the statement of accounts. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so I'm looking for somebody here to give the endorsement so that Karen can actually sign this letter. Do I have anybody that wishes to? Councillor Flitter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a good letter. Thank you to Karen. And I do support this, and I will move it if needed later. But just at the bottom of page 36, we talk about unrestricted access to individuals. And I was just curious about this and just wondered whether any general information on this can be given to us. No detail, just a general update.
Well, that's just a reflection of the fact that we allow the external auditors to contact whichever officers of the council and members, if they wish, that they feel is necessary for them to carry out the work on the statement of accounts. That means that, you know, if something untoward was going on, we're not restricting access, and the auditor has a direct line of inquiry with any individual.
Thank you.
Councillor Flitter, you did say that you'd like to move it. Are you happy to move it?
I'm happy to move this, yes. I have utmost faith in our financial staff.
Lovely, thank you very much. Do I find a seconder, please? Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Donnelly. I've lost you. Councillor Donnelly.
I beg your pardon. I'm on charge now. Yes, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation. I think it's an
You're
excellent.
seconding it. Councillor Flitter's moved it, so you're prepared to second?
I am indeed.
Any comments within it, or?
No, just thank Karen all the hard work she does. Thank you.
Okay. With that, it's been moved and seconded, so we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allison.
4.
Councillor Archer.
4.
Councillor Bull.
4.
Councillor Buttle.
4.
Councillor Chapman.
4.
Councillor Cruz.
4.
Councillor Donnelly.
4.
Councillor Flitter.
4.
Councillor Hill.
4.
Councillor Hobson.
4.
Councillor Morley.
4.
Councillor Purdy.
4.
Councillor Raw.
4.
Councillor Slack.
4.
And Councillor Sutton.
4.
It's unanimous, Chair.
And we're happy to sign it then, Karen, so that can be signed over. Thank you very much, and thank you for doing the report. Now we move on to the statement of accounts. I'll move to Paul Frith for this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. If I can firstly raise your attention to the very late amendment to the statement of accounts that was requested by our auditor this morning, I'll just explain a little about this. We've agreed to remove a line of text from note 3, the assumptions made about future and other major sources of estimation uncertainty. This will be found on page 64 of the statement of accounts document, and it's in the pensions liability section. Basically, we removed reference to the uncertainty about the valuation of equities, and the rationale for the removal is that whilst the future value of the equities is uncertain on the value on the 31st of March, and it could be established from quoted prices. An updated version of the statement of accounts for 1920 was distributed earlier today with this amendment, so you may have seen it, but I just wanted to highlight it in case it hadn't been noticed. The initial draft of the statement of accounts was published on the council's website on the 27th of August, and there were no questions received from members of public during the public inspection period. The audit of the accounts is now complete, and the statement of accounts document is attached to Appendix 2 to this report. This will be uploaded to the website in due course. This will mean that we've fulfilled our statutory requirements this year. As per the body of the report, there's a requirement for council or committee. There's a requirement, at council or committee for members to consider and approve the statement of accounts by resolution at the meeting, and also for the accounts to be signed off by the chair of that committee. The previous reports have covered some of the specific difficulties encountered this year. Gavin mentioned the material estimation uncertainty, and this has been a common theme across a number of local authorities this year, so in no way different to the majority of other councils. I'd like to say that considering the significant difficulties we have faced due to COVID-19, lockdown, home working, it's been a really positive audit to the accounts, and it's highly pleasing to present this report to you and the statement of accounts for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. Well, I would just like to say thank you for the work that's gone in. Again, obviously, you're all working really hard within these constrained times to get this together. I'm hoping there aren't many questions to be fired, because obviously it was out on public consultation and it has come back that there was no comments made to it. If anybody's got any little issues over the bit that we've just actually amend, then I'm quite willing to accept that. But I think other than that, I am looking for somebody to support to the fact that I, as Chair of Governance and Resources, actually signed these statements of account off. So I'm looking for somebody to go with that. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, thank you. I can't really comment on the statement of accounts because I received all this lot in the post yesterday. And I just haven't had time to read through it. And I think we should get it a lot earlier, to be quite honest. But having said that, knowing the difficult times we're in, there's just one item in the report that I'd like to comment on. And that's in, I'm quite happy with the report, but it comments in Appendix 1, question on 9 regarding little resilience in the team and the increased risk, especially at budget time. And I'm just wanting to know if we've got a backup plan to strengthen the team, the finance team, in these circumstances.
Thank you for that.
Chair, if I could answer that question.
Yes, sorry, Paul.
Councillor Flitter's absolutely right. There are significant pressures in the finance team at the moment, and those pressures aren't just as a consequence of the COVID situation, which, as Gavin referred to earlier, has meant significant additional work having to be administered by the finance team as well as other teams. And we are currently looking at a set of proposals to bring before members where we are looking to increase the resources in our finance team, because quite frankly, at the moment, they are not sufficient to deal with the volume and complexity of work that they are having to administer. So Councillor Flitter's right. I'm grateful for raising that point, and I'm making members aware now that that is going to be a report coming forward before you in the very near future.
Thank you, Paul. Does that help, Councillor Flitter?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Paul and Karen and Paul, Financial Officer. They've done a wonderful job in very, very difficult circumstances, and we couldn't ask for any more of our officers. So I'd like to thank them very much indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to move that I can sign these off?
I will. I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you. Do I find a seconder? Councillor Chapman? Councillor Chapman? Do you wish to state anything?
Saying the Chair. No, I'd like to add my congratulations and admiration for the team for putting this stuff together. Thank you.
Lovely. I don't believe there are any more questions or comments. So with that, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the statement of accounts. So can we go to the vote, please?
Yeah. Councillor Allison,
4.
Councillor Archer,
4.
Councillor Ball,
4.
Councillor Buttle,
4.
Councillor Chapman,
4.
Chapman,
4.
Councillor Cruz,
4.
Councillor Donnelly,
4.
Councillor Flitter,
4.
Councillor Hill,
4.
Councillor Hobson,
4.
Councillor Morley,
4.
Councillor Purdy,
4.
Councillor Raw,
4.
Councillor Slack,
4.
and Councillor Sutton.
4.
It's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we take that as being unanimous. So the statement of accounts will be moved over this year. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for all your work put in. Next, we'll move to the internal audit report for the 2019, 20 and 2021 operational audit plan. Jenny, please.
Thank you, Chair. The report covers 3 elements this time. The first is the audits that we've completed since we last reported to you. The second's outstanding audit recommendations, and the third one's a progress review against our 2021 internal audit plan. So this period we've issued 8 reports, 2 with substantial assurance, which is our top level of assurance, 2 with reasonable and 2 limited assurance. The 2 limited assurance reports were asset management and data protection, and as the committee have previously requested, we've included full copies of those reports in the pack. But Appendix 2 just to summarise the reasons why those were given limited assurance. Management have considered these reports and they've agreed the recommendations and have got a plan in place for implementing those recommendations. Just to be clear, because the report's limited, it doesn't mean that it's failing completely. There'll be lots of positive elements in those areas. It's just there are some risks that need addressing. We didn't find any issues in relation to fraud. The next appendix details the current status of internal audit recommendations. So a good number have been implemented, 17 have been implemented, 8 are in the process of being implemented, and 12 are overdue. So it should be noted that it is likely that additional work created by COVID-19 will have slowed down the implementation of some of these recommendations. You don't have any high priority recommendations that are in red, as in overdue. Just to update, since the report was written, I have been told that now all depot staff have undertaken adult safeguarding training and they're currently receiving the child safeguarding module. So there's already been an advancement on that. The third aspect of the report that covers our progress on the 2021 internal audit plan. And you will notice that progress has been slow so far. And that's because the senior internal auditor has been seconded to help set up the systems to pay the business grants that the government's made. And they've been working nearly full time on that. So progress has been slow. As a result of that, we won't be able to complete the whole of the 2021 internal audit plan. So I have met with the Section 151 officer, Karen that is. And if you look at Appendix 6, we're recommending that the areas highlighted in red, we actually defer to next year. And that does mean that we will still be covering the majority of the high and medium risk areas, providing that the senior internal auditor can get back to working on the internal audit plan for the rest of the year. So I'm recommending you note the report, you note the impact of COVID-19 on our ability to complete the audit plan, and I'm asking it be approved that we defer the items in red on Appendix 6 to subsequent years. I'll try and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for that. Well, obviously, Councillor Flitter brought it forward in the last issue as regards staffing and Paul did say about we were short, and I've been given the knowledge that we have had a shortage of staff. The person that does all the internal audits and putting things together has had to move herself over to help with the distributions of grants. The government come in with these ideas, and they say, well, we're going to give the money to the district councils, but it's left down to our accountants and our financial officers to work out how this is done and where it goes to. So it's not just an easy case of there's the money and that whose it goes to. It all has to be worked out. So there is a lot of work that's gone in there, and we can understand. And obviously this is going to continue further on into next year as well, as we know. So I think when we come to the 2021 issues as well, but we are having the reports, and when all things considered, as we look at it, I think what we've put in place and what is running, I think is exceptional under the circumstances. Is there anybody else who wishes to make any comments or questions to Jenny over any part of it? Thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I understand, Chair, what's been said about limited assurance, but it doesn't make very good reading in Appendix 2. I mean, when we see something as simple as not meeting or taking notes, really is inexcusable. But the one thing that does just concern me is the data protection, that we're not compliant with PCI or DSS. And although it's not a legal issue to be so, I think it's hugely important in the world of technology and banking. And I'm wondering whether we could have a little more on that. What do we have to do to be compliant?
Jenny, can you take that?
I can take it, Chair.
Karen,
the requirements for full compliance are very stringent, and we have done quite a lot of work towards compliance. But the main thing holding us back at the moment is telephony, because one of the requirements is that where we take a call, where a person tells us their bank card details, we should have a telephone system that allows that part of the call not to be kind of sectioned off, so it can't be recorded. So we are on the brink of introducing a new telephone system, and I have asked for that to be taken into account when we buy the new one. So hopefully during 2021 we'll be able to revisit it and move towards full compliance.
That makes complete sense. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. And I think, as you'll know, we did sit upon this issue of the telephone situation at our extra meeting for that actual reason. So obviously Karen's just reiterated the fact of how it's causing issues within this situation at the moment. Are there any more comments? Then upon that, I'd like to move.
Chair, I think Councillor Allison's trying to come in.
Oh, sorry, I'd missed you. Sorry, Councillor Allison.
Thank you. It's just to follow up on the resources issue, really, and looking at the audit actions for data protection. Is there any plans to increase the resource in that area? There's an awful lot of work and big projects listed down there, not least of which is data mapping. I just wondered if you've got any plans to increase resource.
Paul, are we coming in? Do you want to come in with that? Yes. Or?
Yep, sorry, Chair, just froze a minute then. Yes, we are also looking at that. James and myself have already had some discussions, and corporate leadership team is due to receive a report on that in the near future.
Thank you. Does that help, Councillor Harrison? Yeah. Okay. I do believe there's a lot of, obviously we've got all the managed training and there are a lot of things, and I think resource is the main issue, and I think we do have to sit and look at the resource side of it again. You know, we've had people going in the past. As we all know, we've had change around of background officers and the likes, and it will take time. And I think once we get all the newer systems in place with the council control management and all the rest of it, I think we'll be in a better place. So let's hope we can move on. So with that, could I find a proposer to accept this report as stated? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move it, but I'd just like to make a comment, if I may, and remind members that a few months ago, the Chief Executive was ahead of the curveball on this and submitted a report, which unfortunately didn't get full support. And so we had to shelve that paper. We're now seeing the wisdom of the Chief Executive in recognising the need for encouraging and improving staff departments. Our staff are really under the cosh. We are crediting them with lots of thanks tonight, but there's awful lots of strain. And throughout the country, with all local authorities, they're unsung heroes in actual fact. I'm on many MLCLG meetings where other leaders in the country have got staff going off with COVID and then departments are wiped out. And government put these business requirements out and expect them to be fulfilled within 2 weeks. So I just like to remind members, please, if Paul comes again with requests for help to support our departments, that it can be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. I take it you've moved that. Thank you, Gary. Yes.
Yes, I did, Chair.
Sorry, can I find a seconder, please?
I'll quite happily second that, thank you.
Councillor Buttle.
Yes, quite happy.
Would you like to make any comments?
No, I'm confident that everything seems to be in order. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded for the internal reports to be noted and the impact on the COVID, and to move the recommendations to the next year. So we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cruz.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Flitter.
For.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Raw.
For.
Councillor Raw.
That was a 4.
Thank you.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
And Councillor Sutton.
For.
Take it as
Unanimous,
unanimous.
Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. So we move that on. Okay, we move on to item 10. DDC tenants proposed rent-free periods. I'll bring in Tim, please, on this one, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, the report's quite self-explanatory, really, but just a very quick introduction. Back in the first lockdown, council approved a rent-free period of 4 months for some of our smaller commercial tenants. And this report just presents the opportunity to make the same offer during the current month-long lockdown. It also makes the point that in some areas, our businesses were unable to open when lockdown ended last time round due to, well, in the case of the ABC, due to DEFRA requirements in terms of how markets should be operated, and suggests that we should perhaps offer them a further month's rent-free as well. This isn't something the council has to do. It doesn't take the form of an official grant or anything like that. It's just an opportunity to support our tenants who provide those useful services to our public. But I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Well, I don't really have a question, Chairman, because it's pretty straightforward. But if you just, I will obviously support this. And in particular, I support the comments made in relation to the boat and train operators. They operate very few months of the year. They still have high costs, and I'm grateful that they have been considered in with this as well. So I will definitely move it.
You would like to move it. Thank you very much. I will take that. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I totally agree with James giving the extra help. Market traders have found it very, very difficult. I've spoken to no sort of market traders, and it's a very difficult time. They're just holding on there, most of them. Some have even finished. So we need all the support they can get. So I'm in favour of this, Chair. So I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any more members wishing to make any comments? Upon that, then I will move to the vote, because it's been moved and seconded that we do the rent-free periods. Thank you, Jason.
Chair. Councillor Allison.
4.
Councillor Archer.
4.
Councillor Ball.
4.
Councillor Bottle.
4.
Councillor Chapman.
4.
Councillor Cruz.
4.
Councillor Donnelly.
4.
Councillor Flitter.
4.
Councillor Hill.
4.
Councillor Hobson.
4.
Councillor Morley.
4.
Councillor Morley.
4.
Councillor Purdy.
4.
Councillor Raw.
4.
Councillor Slack.
4.
And Councillor Sutton.
4.
Unanimous, Chair.
Just unmute Mrs. Bull.
There we go. Again, I will say thank you for that. Me kept putting my button and it won't come off. Right, okay, we'll move on to item 11, organisational health key performance indicators, mid-year 2021. Mike, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a fairly self-explanatory report, but it's a report that we do present to members at this time of year. It's the sort of first 6 months performance against our 12 key performance indicators. As you'll see in the report, we've got about 2/3 of the key performance indicators are currently on target or not far off being on target to achieve the targets we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. At the moment, there is only one that we think will fail to achieve its target, and that relates to the collection of our business rates, and that's there in the report for obvious reasons related to COVID. We are still managing to pay our invoices on time. Our plan application performance is up in both majors and minors, and we are managing to, with our partners of R2, to deal with our changing circumstances and the pressures that people are under in relation to benefits and the like, and the processing of claims in a time that's well within the performance agreement and the service level arrangements we have with them. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Flitter. It looks like we might have lost him.
Hello.
Oh, you're back again. Hi.
No, I hadn't got my hand up for a question because I'm not going to focus on any performance data because under the circumstances, I think our staff have been absolutely brilliant in working through the difficult times, and I think all credit should be given. So I shall just support them.
Thank you very much for that. I did notice yours was up first, so I wanted to jump in. But yes, I quite agree. As I've read this, we do set these targets. They are something that we set for ourselves. Yes, we go out and ask the public and the likes, but as Councillor Flitter has just reinstated, we are in difficult times all round, and the staff to achieve what we're achieving at the moment, I feel is exceptional. And I think, and that's for the work of all the staff and the members of the council that work together with the officers to, you know, to get this put in place. Is there anybody else who wishes to make any more comments? Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Donnelly, are you on mute?
Well, on mute would be handy, wouldn't it? Yeah, and I'm quite happy to move the report, and congratulations to the team that's Mark Washington and his team that's working so hard to keep us all up to speed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Raw.
Yes, I just wondered when the next report was due and whether we could move it on, given what we've, you know, what Councillor Fitter was saying about the pressures on the council at the minute. It might be one less to do on the list if we could move that, if it's due in 6 months, if we could move that to 9 months, when the world might be a little bit freer in terms of worker time.
I think that's quite a sensible suggestion, to be fair. I will move over to Mike or to see how he feels upon that.
Chair, the work will continue. We'll be continuing to monitor our performance indicators over the next 6 months of the financial year. And I think what we probably best to do is to take a view at the time as to when it is appropriate to bring an updating report on the outturn for 2020-21 back to members.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, I think that's quite in agreement there. So upon that, I would like a proposer for this report. Councillor Donnelly, did you wish to propose it?
Yes, Chair, I did propose it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Raw, would you like to second it upon your comments?
Yeah, that's fine. I'd like to second. Thank you.
With all that said, then I'd like to, it's been proposed and seconded that we take on the report, and we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cruz.
For.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Flitter.
For.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Raw.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
And Councillor Sutton.
For.
It's unanimous, Chair.
And another unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. So we accept your report, Mike, and we'll agree to bring it back when it's relevant to be brought back, to save having to push up this report over and above other things that have got to be done more urgent and more important. Thank you. We'll move on to item 13, communication and marketing strategy. I'm bringing in Jim now, please.
I think you've missed.
Is it me, Chair?
Missed one.
Oh, have I? Sorry. Oh gosh, oh crikey. Yes, I beg your pardon, Mike. I'd got you crossed off on that one. Sorry, item 12. I do beg your pardon. Jumping the gun. Wishful thinking. Okay, item 12. Sorry about that. Residents online panel survey results.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a report which covers the results of 2 years worth of resident surveys that we do. We do one each year around sort of September, October time. We didn't report last year's, so we decided that this time around we'd report last year's and this year's together. And by and large, there are some good results within there in terms of the overall satisfaction with the district council as a place to live. But as you'll see, there has been over the course of the last 12 months, probably for obvious reasons, a little bit of a drop off in satisfaction with some of the areas that we've normally performed pretty highly with in the past. I don't think I really need to say much more because the results are fairly self-evident within the report. The one thing that I will mention is that the answers that members of the public give as part of the resident survey are effectively just answering the questions that we ask, What they don't do is they don't ever provide us with any reason and justification for those answers. And what we're wanting to do in the recommendation 2 to the report is to actually enhance the work we do on this survey next year, and to actually come back with some more qualitative responses and ask the members of the public the reasons and justification for their answers.
Yes, well, thank you for that, Mike. Well, I for one would be in agreement. I think we have to, looking at the survey, to how many actually replied out of how many we have as residents within the Derbyshire Dales. It is a bit poor, and I think we do need to look at the demographics and the ages and the likes of and whereabouts they are, you know. So I'm in agreement to the fact that that will be done, but we're wary of the fact that this will make more work to achieve this at the time what's needed. So maybe it be something that we do, you know, annually, but maybe not for next year with the circumstances that are, because I think we've still got a lot to work on under our belt at the moment. But that's my opinion. I'll go to anybody else who wishes to make any comments. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. One, sort of a bit of a, hopefully a very quick one. I just noticed that on the graphs that are presented to compare the 2 years, the axes have been switched around. And I just thought that was a bit strange, because when you're trying to compare graphs from 2019, 2020, you'd have thought the axes would have stayed the same to make it easy to compare. So I wonder if there was a reason for that. I suspect not. Just a quick question. And our second question was about, sort of been covered, about the sort of data set. It seems quite a small sample. Wondering what are we trying to do to get a bigger sample of people for this sort of survey, so we can try and get a bit more reliable result. And the third question relates to the fact that, regardless of obviously the fact that we've got COVID, recognise that COVID's had a big impact, but when you look at these results, it could be seen as quite a worrying trend, really. We are quite significantly down in quite a lot of key areas. And I know it mentions earlier in the report that the LGA figure was taken at a slightly different time of year, so that might reflect there and not being as badly affected by COVID. But the LGA averages have actually often gone up in lots of areas, whereas we've gone down quite significantly. So I just wanted to ask the officers, really, you know, are they concerned about that? And other than COVID, do you think there's any other reasons why we've got this general downward trend? And have we got any ideas in terms of how we can try and address that downward trend? So that was quite a lot, wasn't it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Mike, if you got that.
There's nothing sinister in the graphs. I too had the same question as to why they were the other way around, but I didn't get a particularly satisfactory answer in that. It's just the way in which it's been generated from the online survey. It's come out in a different way for different years, but it presents the data in the same way, or the data is presented, or the answer to the data or the answer to the questions are presented in a way which can be read. So there's nothing sinister there. In terms of the sample size, members will have to sort of just bear with me for a couple of seconds while I explain something. When we had a citizens panel, which was some years ago now, it was a very sort of representative approach to the makeup of the district council in terms of the residents, both in geographic terms and in age structure terms. But the cost of running the citizens panel, particularly to recruit people into the right slots in the right locations and the right ages, was quite an expensive exercise to do. So we decided at that particular point, actually, that rather than have a formal citizens panel, we'd go to an online panel. The online panel is self-selecting, and people have volunteered from across the district to engage with us and to answer the questions that we put to them. As you'll see in the report, we have grown the numbers on the online panel over the course of the last 4 years, from 714 through to 885, and we are looking at over the course of time to actually continue to increase those numbers. One of the things that we do whenever we put out Dales Matters, for example, there's always a bit in Dales Matters which asks for people to sign up to to the online panel and volunteer to take part in the satisfaction surveys that we run. So, but nevertheless, we are still getting about a 50% response rate to those people that are being questioned at this point in time, which is a pretty good response rate. Yes, we could increase the numbers and get more reliability and statistical validity to those, but we are going in the right direction on that regard. In terms of the third part of Councillor Archer's question about COVID, yes, that COVID has had an impact on some of the responses we think, and we think that some of the decisions that have been quite controversial over the last 12 months or so have also had an impact upon the responses that the panel members have given back to this. You'll see within the report there are some sort of alternative views, if you like, of the sorts of things that we're trying to do to sort of negate the sort of outcomes that we've been receiving from this particular survey. But as I said in introduction, we don't know exactly why people have said what they've said, because we don't ask those questions. All we're asking is, what is your view on this particular good, average or bad? And that's what we're getting back. So what we're saying to you in recommendations is that next year when we do this questionnaire, we actually expand the questions that we ask to try and get people's responses in a bit more detail.
Thank you for that, Mike. Does that help, Councillor Archer?
Yeah, I mean, I still think we need to certainly think about why the trends are down and what we can try and do to address that. I don't know if there are any comments on that now, if that maybe for a working group or working party or something like that. Just one comment on it, really. I think there's definitely a perception when I speak to people that there's a feeling that people give a lot of council tax and that asking what the council's doing with all their money. And I think we maybe could do more to make the public aware of the very drastic cuts we've had from central government. I think we will get a little bit more sympathy on that front if we did. But that's just a quick comment. But I think that, I don't know if we've really addressed the point of why we think the trends are down other than COVID and what we can maybe do about it. But maybe that isn't for this meeting. It's perhaps for a future group. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, Councillor Slack, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Archer's already said. I'm very dismayed that it's down, but I think it's related to COVID. A lot of people are downhearted. You know, the general mood at the moment is they're downhearted with the situation in the country, social distancing, isolation. It's all plays, and when they ask questions, they probably would have given a different answer if it had been in different times, to be honest. So I think next year will be a better indicator when we get out of this virus situation. In regards to getting more people on the panel, can you just one question, Mike? What is the main age group of the citizens panels? Are they mostly elderly or middle, or I bet not a lot of young people, probably?
So I honestly don't know the answer to that question, because the information that we have is sort of kept separate. So we have the panel which is separate from the sort of analysis side of things. So the panel is maintained in one part of the council. But what we do is we use that panel, if you like, anonymously, and then we use the results to present those to you in these sorts of reports. Yeah,
because you get different views from different generations, obviously.
I think you're right, Councillor Slack, and you know, my probably sort of educated guess would be that we've probably got an older bias in terms of the responses that we have, or the respondents on the panel. But the honest answer is I don't know the exact makeup of the panel itself.
Yeah, and just to echo what Councillor Archer's already said, we could do with more people joining the citizen panel. Whatever avenues was open to us to advertise this to come on board, it will be an advantage to the council to get a stronger view. So yeah, but thank you for the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Councillor Morley.
Thank you very much, Chair. When I was having a look through this report, I got to page 108, 2.28 about customer services. And I was a bit disappointed to see that between 2019 and 2020, that the percentage had dropped. When in actual fact, to be honest, I think the quality of our website is absolutely superb. And I think, you know, congratulations to Jim Fern and the team for communication, because as soon as Jim is able to put anything online, it's there. Ease of contact with the council. Well, there are a number of people who have perhaps come across within my ward, and if they don't get through to the right person immediately, then they don't bother trying again. But they're very quick to sort of say, well, I can't get through. Well, how often are you trying? Or have you been on the website to look very carefully? I think it might be worthwhile if I could please suggest to colleagues that I have found it useful to reconfirm at parish council meetings how much information there actually is on our website, because they don't realise. Particularly at the moment, I'd like to use the example of the business grants and help with small businesses. We can receive phone calls as councillors, but they haven't looked on the website. It's a lack of education on their part and a lack of interest. And sadly, I'll have to say, occasionally one comes across people who don't know the difference between county and the district, and how our roles are completely separate. So I was a little disappointed with that lower figure, because I don't think the council website could be any better than it is. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, I've seen these over a number of years. I'm sure Councillor Flitter will say he's seen them longer, because it's like. But it is a snapshot in time, and any data is only as good as what you put into it. So again, we have officer capacity problems here. I've just had a thought. I wonder if probably we ought to approach a university to get some grad students helping us with this. I'm sure it would help them towards their dissertations, and it would help us with that volunteer force. So we can all give hypotheses as to what's the cause of it. So at the last brief, I'm pleased to see that what we asked for is in there, Mike, and that is that we do need a more qualitative assessment of it. It's how we reach that with the problems with officer capacity. So I think this does need a refresh by officers to look at how we get this data and what it means to us, so that we can prove more beneficial to our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. There's been lots of good news throughout the evening, and I think that, you know, our district council has worked very hard through the pandemic on so many things, from business grants to support that they're giving the community. So it's important to say that. I do think, I'm kind of with Councillor Archer here, that some of the trends in there are a little bit concerning. Satisfaction as a measure is always a bit tricky. So I think along with Councillor Purdy, getting a bit of a story behind the numbers would be really important to us, so that there is maybe a fresh look at how we're doing this to get better insight, so we can really understand what's going on. Yeah. But the trends are going in the wrong direction. I think we need to recognise that and then say, what do we need to do about it? So I'd like to get a report coming back at some point that gives us a bit more information, so we can understand specifically what some of the real specific points are, and then what the actions are that we could do to follow up as a council. And the other thing I'd like to know is whether we can break it out by area, because it's quite grouped up at a kind of a district level, and you know, Matlock could be absolutely over the moon with things, whereas Ashbourne might not be, for example. So I think it'd be good to get that split out as well. And the other thing is, when people are filling out the surveys, there's an opportunity to say, can we follow up with a phone call to get some more information? If you score below a certain level, people may be willing to do that. And I think the other thing from the pandemic, people are much more tuned in to going online to do things. So the cost of doing citizens forums and that type of things actually dropped. And I think I'll talk about my own mum, her ability to get online and use tools and techniques during the pandemic is in a completely different place this year compared to where it was last year. You know, she's very savvy now, and I think skills have developed in that space. So I think we can break through to get a better insight from the wider community in terms of what's going on, and the cost to do that, I think, has dropped, and people's willingness to engage has probably gone up. So like just a couple of comments from the officers, please, on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mike?
I couldn't disagree with Councillor Cruz at all in terms of, you know, the sort of sentiment. There are some of the statistics within the report which are going in the wrong direction. But as I've said in introduction, I've said before, you know, we don't know exactly what those reasons are. And what we are proposing is that as part of the next survey that we would ask those questions. And at that particular point, we'll be able to bring a report back, which provides a lot more detail to members on exactly, you know, why people are saying what they're saying. In terms of the breakdown of geographical area and the other comments that Councillor Cruz has made, we'll need to give some thought as to how we do that without necessarily incurring additional costs to the authority.
Thank you for that. Councillor Buttle.
Hi, yeah. Quite amusingly, I'm actually on this citizens panel. I have been for many years. So I've been filling some of these in, you know, like on and off. And Peter's absolutely right. Yeah, like when I said satisfaction with district council services, you know, like they were coloured by some information, but a lot of it was brought on by COVID. So I didn't feel quite as safe outside as I did before, and things like that. And you know, like asking my local district councillor for information. Yes, I did that. I sometimes asked David something, and you know, like altogether, I think we shouldn't worry too much. It feels to me like it's fair, and I don't think we're going downhill quite as fast as it looks. So there we go. That's all. That's all.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Buttle. Councillor Fitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's been interesting to hear what other members feel on this, because it's no surprise to you that I have always been sceptical of this and still am. I mean, why 885 people should sign up to an online panel and only 48% respond, then there's something seriously got to be wrong with that. And I don't take the argument that it's a good figure, because if you're only having 48% of 885 people out of a population of the Derbyshire Dales tell you one thing or another, it's not a very good starting point. I've always said on this council that you can put a set of facts and figures in front of 20 people. The same facts and figures will go to those same people, and you'll get 20 different scenarios. And that's what it is on this, I'm afraid, because I disagree with the possibility of linking where you live satisfaction with the Derbyshire Dales District Council. No way is that linked. They are happy with the place where they live, and that is borne out in the figures, because 88% have said they are happy with the place where they live. But if you look further down, it's only 26% are satisfied with the Derbyshire Dales, and 9%, which doesn't surprise me at all, relate to Derbyshire. I mean, if you were in Yorkshire, you'd have a far higher figure than that. So we're not doing things properly in all respects, especially when you feel that only 62% think that it is value for money that the district council operate for. And with all the goodwill in the world and everything that Jim does through the marketing and the strategies, we're only getting 63% that are well informed. So I think we've got more to do than just look at the questions. And I take on the point that other members have made. We have to go far deeper in this and try and attract more people right across the spectrum, and not just sit with with 800 and odd people with only half of them responding. So I'm sorry, I'm not too enthusiastic about this. I'll support the report because the report is what it is. But I still think that we're failing somewhere and we've got to get a grip of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flitter. Councillor Allison.
Yeah, it's just following up on some of the points that Councillor Morley made, actually. I think it is important that we support the officers in the communication out to the community. And yeah, you can say things at parish councils, but actually I think we need to start using more social media tools that are open to us. I know that when I get anything from Jim about a new campaign, I put it straight onto my Facebook page and I share that around the village Facebook communities that I'm linked into. So I think we do have that responsibility, and that then breaks down those barriers to what the council is doing and sends out those messages. So yeah, it's just to say that there's more options for us, and I think we need to start engaging with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, obviously, we did, as Councillor Purdy's alluded to, we have spoken about this before. So I'm really pleased that we are going to have the further bit more detailed questioning coming up in September 2021. But did you say at the beginning, Chair, about not rushing these reports on, because obviously we're in quite a difficult time at the moment. So I welcome the extra work that's going to be done, but I wouldn't want to be pushing the officers to be doing it sort of up for September 21 if there isn't that time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Hobson. Mike, how are we with that situation? I know we said on the key performance indicators that would keep going, but obviously this is a survey result. And yes, there are things that members wish to put forward to probably get a bigger picture, shall we say, of it and the like. So how do you feel upon this not being a rush, but looking into this at a time more in depth, but not obviously having a time limit to next September?
Yeah, I do think that at the moment we've got enough time to be able to design a questionnaire which allows us to address some of the issues in relation to getting the additional information from those on the residents panel, on the residents panel. The one thing that we may struggle with in the next 12 months is actually increasing the numbers on the panel itself, and that may well be a challenge. But I can talk to Jim about how we might do that, and CLT about how we might do that over the course of the next 12 months. But in terms of progressing the survey, the vast majority of the questions are questions which we've been asking for a number of years. They're based upon the Local Government Association questions that they ask on a regular basis. So I don't think in that regard, I don't feel that the questionnaire design is something that will be something that will take significant additional resources over the course of the next 12 months.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so upon all of that, I don't believe that anybody else wishes to speak. So do I find a mover for the actual report, please?
Move it, Chair.
Councillor Chapman, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Sutton?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's been moved and seconded that we accept the report as is. So we go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cruz.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Flitter.
For.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Raw. Councillor Raw.
Right. For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
And Councillor Sutton.
Or
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mike, for the report, and let's hope we can move on, and maybe some of the other members would like to contact you later in the day with emails to some of their suggestions that they made tonight. Many thanks. We'll move on to item 13, communication and strategy. Jim, I'm finally bringing you in.
Lovely to be here. Thank you, Chair. This is an annual report to this committee, and you'll note that while the communications and marketing strategy itself doesn't change very much, it has a multi-channel focus. What does change is the associated action plan, and that's directed by the Communications and Marketing Hub, which I chair. What this report seeks to do is to review the progress of the past year's action plan and to request the committee's approval for the upcoming year's plan. I won't go through the review at item 2 in the report line by line, but you'll note that unsurprisingly there have been some COVID impacts. However, the two major projects, that was meeting new government accessibility guidelines for the website and launching a new staff intranet, are being delivered. And I should add that the intranet project has been delivered entirely in-house, which is really good news. If you'll allow me, Chair, I'll pick out for members' interest the action at 2.9, which is an undertaking to measure the success of large-scale promotions and marketing activity. Now, while Matlock Beth Illuminations, which in recent years has benefited massively from a digital marketing focus, was sadly cancelled this year, ongoing progress of the garden waste collection project shows that 91% of the 7,300 sign-ups to date have been in response to a physical leaflet delivered to all households in the district. And that figure's actually risen from 81% when I wrote the report. And then the majority of people who respond to the physical leaflet then go on to digitally sign up via our website. In fact, I think that's a fact I think that emphasises the importance of having a multi-channel communications approach. The proposed action plan for 2021 at agenda item 3 includes completing the Communications and Marketing Hub's signage project with the introduction of statement signs in our 3 large parks in Ashbourne, Bakewell and Matlock. It's been a year packed with crisis communications, we've already heard, not least responding to the flood emergencies last year, followed by COVID. And this has meant that this part of the overall signage project has unfortunately lapsed. But what the Hub is looking to do here is to underline the District Council's responsibility for those parks, make them welcoming with helpful information, and create awareness of public space protection orders, which will help us to reduce the rather messy proliferation of smaller official signs, and they're scattered around all those parks. You'll see that PSPO is mentioned again in item 3.2 because, as you're aware, a review starts early next year into those. And at 3.3, the action plan is responding to the Council's recent motion to work with partners to discourage the use of disposable barbecues and open fires here in the Derbyshire Dales. Comms aren't leading on either of these projects, but we are gearing up to get involved at the business end. And finally, members may also be interested in item 3.5, where we're committing to working with Democratic Services colleagues to plan the facilitation of blended or hybrid meetings in anticipation of COVID restrictions, hopefully easing sometime in 2021. And I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. Well, it's a wonderful report again, as always, and it is nice to know that what we're sending out is being looked at and being fed back to us, and to people taking up offers of the issue. And it is quite nice to find out about the garden waste situation. So I look forward to more on that. Councillor Allison.
Thank you, Chair. And just wanted to say I'm really glad that you're looking at some sort of blended option for meetings in the future, which will save me a 50-mile round trip from Duffridge to Matlock and back. So thank you for that. The question that I've got, it relates to the multi-channel approach. And I just wondered, are there any plans for any sort of council mobile app in the future?
That's an interesting one. In the recent survey we sent out to members, we did ask if councillors wanted to be communicated with via SMS. The majority didn't. So whether or not they would support the idea of enhancing to the level of an app, I don't know. We could ask the question again. I'm sure Paul would be happy for us to sort of do another survey in short time.
I wasn't thinking about members. I was wondering whether you were going to introduce a mobile app linked to you know, how customers might engage with us.
We don't have any plans at the moment. I mean, a big part of the new CRM system, of course, on the website is the My Account space, which was something that we really need to be promoting heavily when we really got time to do it. But that's sort of the next big action on our communications programme.
Thank you for that. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's just observation. I think it's a first-class report, as it always says from Jim. It's really good, and all the work he's done for the Derbyshire Dales is really fantastic. So, Derby County's we win and Derby County loses in regards to marketing. So, well done, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, once again, Chair, I mean, this is an excellent report. I think we do very well on communications. I mean, Jim just keep the public informed. That's one thing he does do well. And, you know, it is really exciting because I can't wait to get back into that council chamber. But I can see the how people that live 20, 30 miles away from the town hall, this would benefit. And I think that's a way forward that we ought to be going as soon as. Really exciting news that. My question really relates around to the measure of success from the Matlock Bath illuminations. We are very successful there, and I'm wondering whether we can cope with any more people in that area. I mean, take for instance, when I'm involved with the Matlock Victorian Fair. We've got to a stage there, or we did get to a stage there, where we couldn't really do any more because of the capacity. So, you know, we've got to realise the capacity of people that we can actually accommodate down there. But the one thing that does bug me, I hope there's going to be, on the new signage in our parks, I hope there's going to be some consultation with members because our claims and pleas about the present signs in the park have just not gone heeded with officers, I'm afraid to say. Nothing's been done about them since we complained about them. They're far too big, they're in the wrong place, and we're just getting our noses turned up at us. And I would hate that these being replaced for others in such an area. I mean, Hawley's Park, for instance, is a beautiful park. It's well known, it's got its awards. And I just hate to see it littered with signs that really we've been going through a decade of decluttering. And suddenly we've got to put signs up to promote Derbyshire Dales. So I hope there's going to be some consultation between ward members so that we can work together on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
If I can answer that, Chair, in 3.1, Councillor Flitter, you'll see that we've expressly said that there will be consultation with ward members on the final designs of the signs when they're available. Going back to the illuminations, one of the great things about, for instance, having a Facebook page with 30,000 followers for the illuminations is that we do pre-sell, and it means that we get bookings to the stage where we know if we're going to sell out or not. So that's been a great move forward. It means that we can get out social media messages on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday to advise people that the illuminations is either sold out or nearly sold out. And of course, we work right into the Saturdays as well to inform people if there is a sellout situation. So social media has really helped us in that, from that point of view, not only to sell the illuminations at really no marketing costs whatsoever, because what we do on social media is free, but also to advise people that not to come if we're on a sellout situation. So that's really helped us.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say, though, that the emphasis on the Matlock Bath illuminations really, to me, is getting more people there on the first couple of weeks, because at the opening of such an event, the attendance is pretty poor. But the weeks to follow are very good.
You're right again, Councillor Flitton. That's why last Easter, not last Easter, the Easter before, we did a big push on cheaper tickets for a short time period for those opening 2 weekends. And I'm sure that's what we would have done again this time around had the event gone ahead.
Thank you for that. Councillor Buttle.
Hi, Jim. Blended meetings, coming back to that, we just had one for the planning committee where we had a couple of members of the public take part by their laptop, and it was excellent. It was really good. If you were involved in that, thank you very much. It felt like we were actually beginning to sort of bring people in instead of holding them to distance. So I thought that was really good. And if we can do more of that in future for the planning meetings where people can actually, you know, be part of it, then I think we should. And so I'm definitely in favour of the blended stuff. There we go.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buttle. Councillor Purdy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 or 3 points, please. Picking up on Councillor Flitter's first point about the Matlock Bath illuminations. Of course, it was a tragedy to have to cancel it this year, but we had to for obvious safety reasons. I've been involved with it a long time, going back into my police days even. But 2 or 3 years ago, it got to overcapacity and it was actually unsafe. We got lots of complaints, particularly with families with children. The little children were getting lost in the adults, and even the vendors were complaining that it was overcapacity. So the emergency team at county had to advise us to reduce numbers, I think by 2,000. That actually worried us greatly on the working group, but we actually did all right. And it's because of that game chamber that Jim talks about, the selling the tickets before, and even if we have a bad weather night, we still get people, you know, that have spent the money. So it is something we do work on in the working group, and hopefully next year we'll pick it up again, and we'll, you know, we'll recognise that those first 2 or 3 days are getting a bit difficult. I've just got a low battery sign on my iPad for some strange reason, so I hope I don't lose you. On the waste card response, Jim, you said that's very high. Is that a cue for us doing the survey, using cards to get a high response on our customer satisfaction survey? Just a thought. And on the big belly bin, Pete Hassels from Paddle Peak, who is a canoeist and with his Matlock canoers, does a fantastic job for this authority in cleaning the rivers. And he takes tons out of waste, and has even identified raw sewage coming into the river. But he's asking if he can help with sponsorship for big belly bins. Have we had any approaches for sponsorship?
We haven't as yet, but I'm happy to chase that one, Councillor Purdy. As I mentioned in the report, what we're doing is putting the poster frames into the big belly bins. That's not a cheap thing. We've got 42 big belly bins as well, so we need to be a little bit selective. But yeah, great. I'm happy to chase that one. And as James has just pointed out to everybody, just on that blended meetings, if I could go back to then, it's more about having a hybrid meeting, a little bit like you see in Parliament, where you've got some members in the chamber, others for whatever reason, maybe health reasons, when the meeting situation eases, can then sort of be zoomed in to that meeting. So you'll have a town hall space where you have some members, some officers in the chamber, and other people will be appearing on a screen. That's what we really mean by the blended.
Thank you for that clarification there, Jim. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a great report. I'm happy to move on. I don't know if it's been moved or seconded yet. The action plan's absolutely brilliant moving forward. I am particularly interested in the hybrid meetings, and Jim and James have just explained that. I think that enables all members to be engaged at council meetings, but also other meetings. None of this going to Matlock every 5 minutes. You know, everybody can be engaged without all that travelling. It's bad for if people are claiming expenses, it's bad for the environment as well. So that's a great thing. Can I just say, Jim, that the crisis communications with the flooding, it might not be a crisis to a lot of people, but in the summer when the bins were going to be late or the bins weren't coming, that information came out. And from my residents, they love to hear that. All your information that comes out, I try and encourage, you know, through the parish council for members of the public to sign up for it. But I've got an excellent clerk to parish council of Sarah Porter in Chatsworth, and Sarah sends out all your information very promptly to my residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. So I'm taking that Councillor Hobson's moved it. I've got nobody else with questions. Do I find a seconder for this one? Councillor Buttle, would you like to second it?
Very happily. I think it's great.
So it's been moved and seconded. Can we go to the vote, please?
Yeah. Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Archer.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Cruz.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Flitter.
For.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Rawes. Councillor Raw gone. I think Councillor Raw's gone, yeah. Councillor Slack.
For.
And Councillor Sutton.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
That's another unanimous. Well, thank you very much, Jim, for that report and the action plan that's there, and we look forward to working alongside you to promote this out as well. And I would like to thank everybody, members of and the officers, for attending this meeting, and all viewers that are there on the outside. And I will close the meeting at, I don't know, 20:50.